First player interview of this offseason here on Locked On Pacers, joined by a Team USA player who you saw play with Tyrese Haliburton. It's Micah Potter, Utah Jazz center, who played with Haliburton on the floor in some of those USA Basketball Showcase games. Saw it all from LeBron to Haliburton, assistant coach Jim Boylen, and more. We'll get to all of it today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today, player interview number one of the offseason here at Locked On Pacers. Hopefully getting in two more this offseason, and we're starting with somebody who just had an awesome experience and can break down more about Tyrese Haliburton for us. Micah Potter, who's with Team USA on the select team, but really a kind of special group of the select team. Him, Langston Galloway, a former Pacer, and Nigel Hayes were the three that were with Team USA for the USA Basketball Showcase. So Potter played against Canada. He played against Serbia and Abu Dhabi with Haliburton a little bit, scored some points, outscored Haliburton in a game, outscored Devin Booker in a game. Really had a nice stretch with that team. We'll get into all the weeds of the Olympic run we just saw, Haliburton's role with this team. A very, very cool story that you guys will enjoy hearing about Haliburton in practice in a drill with LeBron and Anthony Edwards, and so much more about NBA life, his grind to get to this point with Utah, and so much more. Great interview. You'll learn about the Pacers and that Team USA gold from Micah Potter. Let's just hop right in. We've got Micah Potter here from Team USA select team and kind of more. I don't know what you call that little three-man squad with Nigel Hayes and Langston Galloway that was select team, but with Team USA and playing in games against Canada, against Serbia. Crazy summer for you, Micah. How do you even remember this now that it's only been settled for a little bit, but how will you remember just everything that happened these last couple months?
Well, I mean, just over the course of the summer itself, it's probably the craziest summer I've ever experienced. But the Team USA stuff specifically is probably not even probably, it's the coolest thing I've ever done. I mean, obviously, I'm living my dream playing professional basketball, and I love doing that. But then you add the element of being on Team USA, and then you add the Olympics, and then you add all of the players that were on that team, like literally the Avengers. It was one of the craziest experience and coolest things I've ever done in my life.
When did you find out that you'd be on that select team? Like, was it after you already knew who, like, LeBron and KD and Stan, everybody? Did you already know all that when you got asked to do it?
Yeah, so I didn't find out. My agent called me out of the blue. It would have probably been early July, late June, early July. Or excuse me, that's actually not true. Early June, late May, one of those two, because I ended up leaving July 5th. But it was probably around then. They had already had the Team USA picked. Obviously, they had the switch with Derek White and Kawhi after Vegas. But it was around then, and my agent called me, and he was just like, "Hey, you've been selected to be on the USA select team for the Olympics." And I was just like, "What?" Like, I had no previous connections to Team USA. Like, I had kind of like a fringe NBA guy. Like, a lot of the time, those guys are kind of the first or second year guys, maybe third, who were kind of on the up and up. But I guess the G League coach of the Jazz organization, recommended me for it. Steve Wojciechowski, he had a lot of connections with Coach K and Team USA stuff a couple years back. So he recommended me for it, and my agent was just like, "You're doing this. This is a non-negotiable. Like, I don't care if you have vacation planned or whatever. You're canceling it. You're doing this." Thankfully, we didn't have anything scheduled, but yeah, it was a crazy situation.
What were you thinking when you heard, like, wait, I'm on the Olympic select team?
Literally, like, what? I didn't know what to say. Like I said, my agent called and he's just like, "Hey, got good news," and then he told me, and it didn't make any sense. I'm like, literally, I was speechless. I couldn't answer, and like my wife wasn't here. She came back in like 5 minutes later to our apartment, and I was just like still speechless. She's like, "What's going on?" But I was ecstatic. I was excited, speechless. There's so many different things. Just to be able to be a part of that in any way, shape, or form, not only just for a World Cup, but for the Olympics too. And then the whole aspect of being able to travel with them to Abu Dhabi and London, that whole idea was nuts. And at first, we didn't really know if we were even going to dress or let alone play in the games. Like we thought we were just going to be there for a practice, be an extra body if someone needs a break, has to go out, gets hurt, whatever. And then we ended up dressing for every game, and I got to play in 2 and scored in both of those games. That was kind of a crazy situation. But yeah, it was unreal. And I just, like I said, I couldn't believe it. It was crazy.
So that's something I kind of wondered. Like I was in Vegas for Summer League, and one of the first games I watched, like, oh, there's Jaime Jaquez. Like he was just doing select team. Oh, there's Brandon Miller in the other gym. How did you, Nigel, and Langston get chosen to be the 3 that stayed with the team and got to appear in those the basketball showcase games?
Yeah, well, I do know that they like to get guys that have FIBA experience. That's why Nigel was just a first team all EuroLeague guy. Langston had played in the NBA for, I think he said 9 years, and had been doing stuff with Team USA for a couple years before that. He played in, I think, like in a Pan American game or something before, so he had a Team USA connection. Me, I had none of that. I've never played in anything FIBA except for like some junior international tournament when I was in high school, and then like the foreign tour that colleges take once every 4 years. I got to go to Spain, but other than that, I had no connections to FIBA. Me, I guess it was strictly through the recommendation of Coach Wojo, and my agent, I guess, knew Sean Ford, the director of the men's national team, for many years. And I guess I just kind of fit that mold of like being a skilled big, one who can shoot, be physical, low maintenance, don't have to worry about what he's going to being late or whatever. Because you don't have to worry about guys like that in that situation. You just want them to be able to be on time, do what they're told, and do it well. You know what I mean? So I guess I just kind of fit that mold, and they kind of made the decision. And I guess that, I don't know. I it's an honor to be even considered for a spot like that. And I'm very happy and thankful that I was.
Well, and then you get in against Canada and you shoot immediately and hit it. Like you look like anyone else on the team, right? Like you scored, you played well. What goes into that? When you came in, were you thinking, I want to score, I want to get a shot up? Like what goes through your head in that moment of just like such a unique opportunity in your career to that point?
Yeah. So like I said earlier, we weren't even expecting to dress, let alone play. So we found out like at 2 p.m. that day that we were actually going to dress. And then at that point, she was like, okay, this is the first real game. Like they're going to let all these guys, even if we're up 30, which no, I don't think anyone expected to happen because, Canada's got a really good team.
Yeah.
And I think they were ranked 3rd in the world at that point or something. I don't think anyone was expecting us to be up like that. And so we were just kind of expecting to be there, be your typical end of the bench cheerleader guys or whatever. And then they call all 3 of us. So at that point, I'm just like, oh man, I'm going in. But then after that, I'm like, okay, this is what I do. I've trained my whole life for this. It's a bigger stage, right? It's like, it's a bigger, but not bigger because the game doesn't really mean anything, but it's still like prep for the Olympics with this team and these players and all that kind of stuff. And then it's just Team USA, which is a big deal in and of itself. So at that point, I'm thinking, there's no pressure. We're up big, but like, show yourself, like be a basketball player to show off what you can do. So at that point, I'm thinking I got to score, be aggressive and score. Don't get back cut and don't give up an offense. Don't let your guy give up, an offensive rebound. Because that was in FIBA, back cuts are such a big deal. We had talked about that in practices and the shoot around that day of just, making sure that because there's no defensive 3 seconds, there's got to be a lot of off ball movement in order to open the floor up. So just kind of going through the basic things that we talked about not letting happen. And then it's kind of cool. I was able to do all 3 things. Shout out to Drew Holiday for hitting me in the corner in transition. But like I said, like those are shots that I shoot every single day. I work on every single day. And so that stuff kind of came naturally. And so you wasn't really thinking about it. But then after the game, you look back, you're like, wow, I just hit a 3 for Team USA with this team and arguably the greatest Olympic team ever assembled and all that kind of stuff. So it was crazy.
I believe when you came in, Anthony Davis and Devin Booker were the 2 that came out. And then in that game, you outscored Haliburton. In the Serbia game, you outscored Devin Booker, right? Just hitting the 3. Like, do you have a thing you'll remember from those games? Like, oh, I did that, or like that play is just seared in your memory from those opportunities?
Yeah, so it kind of ties back into practice. The first three I hit, uh, I kind of previously been slightly trash talking in practice because I didn't really know those guys yet, didn't really know the coaching staff, but trying to show some confidence and stuff to make it look like I felt like it looked like I belonged. Just kind of trash talking like, oh, this is what I do, shooting the ball, like hitting shots in practice. It's what I do. Just kind of lightly trash talking or whatever. And then I hit the three in the game, and then everyone else is like, it's what he does. And so that was kind of like the mantra going forward. Then we had this one drill where, just because in FIBA, with this kind of a team, guys don't get like 20 shots a game. There might be like one game if they're going off where they might get like 10 to 12, maybe 15 shots. But most of the time it's going to be between that probably 3 to 7 range of shots. So it's like we'd line up the whole team, everyone gets 1 3 from a different spot, and the team had to be above 50%. And I only missed one. We probably did it like 6 or 7 times, and I only missed one, and it was the very first one, and it was in and out. So before the Canada game. So after that, I kind of been, once I hit the first 3 against Canada, kind of started talking a little bit more trash. And then the Serbia 3 that I hit, that was kind of the one. Like, if you watch the video, you can see me turn around and look right back at the bench, just kind of like smirking at him. I was looking at Ty Lue because he's the one I've been talking the most trash with. So that was probably kind of the thing that really sticks out the most, besides that, just that first shot. But that one where I hit against Serbia, where I just like came in the game ice cold, hit that shot from the top of the key, and turn right back around and like kind of stare down the bench a little bit with a smirk on my face. That was probably the thing that sticks out the most.
A little more big picture of the Team USA thing here, but you're from Ohio and you're on the team with LeBron James. Like, was there a moment you were like, oh my God, I'm on LeBron's team, or did you have to like reel it in and think like I belong here at any point?
So I've been in the NBA now for this last year was my 3rd year, going on year 4, and so like I've been on the floor with these guys, and so excuse me, it's not really something where you're just like, oh, it's LeBron James. I would say maybe the first time that I played against LeBron, it was kind of like that, because he's the guy that being from Cleveland, I grew up watching him, cheering for him, like thought he was the best player in the world, like all that kind of stuff. But like once you compete, you can't have that mindset, or else
Right.
you're just going to get killed. Like you have to go in there confident, expect to be there, like feel like you belong. So I really never had anything like that. He was someone that I wanted to like initially get to know and talk to, like about other things, like let him know that I'm from Northeast Ohio and all that kind of stuff. But I would say the off factor comes from all of those players being on the same exact team that you're a part of, and all of those coaches creating that coaching staff. Like all of those guys are NBA champions as far as like on the coaching staff, except for Mark Few, but that's college is different. And his pedigree in college is incredible. So it's just, I'd say that's where the off factor came from, was all of these guys being on the same team at the exact same time. But there's still the element of I belong here. Like, I was chosen for a reason. I have to prove that I belong here, because I'm also like, I'm a free agent. And if there's I'm a fringe guy and I'm a free agent. So if there's anything that I can show here that could potentially help me in the future with getting contract, roster spot, whatever, like I have to prove myself. And so that's kind of was my mindset going into the whole thing, was to enjoy it, get to know these guys, but also show that I belonged.
Hey, everybody, short little break so we can talk about FanDuel. I love sports. I love sports so much. I never want them to stop, but as the playoffs have wound down for months now in the NBA and the NHL, we get fewer games in the summer. Olympic break, not quite done, although very soon in the WNBA. MLB is going on. Olympics are done. The sports aren't sporting like we all want them to, but FanDuel lets the sports keep going, lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you got to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer on FanDuel with a boost or bonus daily. FanDuel is an official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Speaking of a guy on that team, the Tyrese Haliburton, of course, covering the Pacers here. I watch him all the time. You had select team experience with him before also this year, but of course getting the transition for him from World Cup team to Olympic team was a huge deal. He was also a LeBron fan as a kid. He just tweeted a bunch of pictures of him wearing a LeBron jersey earlier today. What have you gotten to know about him and his skill set? What kind of makes him a fit with that USA team?
Well, first of all, Reese is a great guy. Like, I'm sure you guys have all realized that and come to know that with his time in Indiana. But he's a fantastic human being, ultra skilled. I mean, even with his shot that people give him a hard time for sometimes, like his shot making ability is incredible. We would do shooting drills, and there was one shooting drill we were doing in Abu Dhabi in practice. And this isn't a slight to Anthony Davis or LeBron, but it was him, Anthony Davis, and LeBron, and he torched him. Like, I think he made essentially what it was is you had to make 6 shots before you miss 3, and you can't miss 2 in a row. And so I don't think he missed a shot. And they went 7 spots, and I'm pretty sure he went like whatever that would be, like 36 for 36 or 42 for 42 or something. Like, it was like an absurd percentage. Maybe he missed like 1 shot, but it was just incredible, like his shot making ability. And then obviously his passing is unbelievable with a team like that to be able to drive through space and create, because in FIBA it's so much harder because there's not space. So you have to be able to have playmakers. So seeing him do that in practice and then knocking down shots was a big part of Team USA. That's why he was there, was to be that facilitator to get other guys going and things like that. So he was awesome. He was a great player. It was really good to get to know him. There's also a little bit of a connection that we had because he went to Iowa State, and Wisconsin, where I went, in Iowa State, at least the 2 years that I'd been there, and I guess pretty much every year before that, always have like a preseason scrimmage that they play. And something that I was kind of messing with him about was like that we torched him both years that I was there. Like, we killed Iowa State both times. So it was kind of a fun thing, but he's a great dude and obviously a great player.
He will hold that you said that to him with him the rest of his life. So you have ignited something in him with that. Were you ever against him in scrimmages in that setting? And it's different in FIBA, like you said, especially with this team. Like, I always thought it was really interesting to have a facilitator type because it is really valuable, obviously. But like, everyone on that team can create their own shot to a certain level too. So it was really interesting to kind of see what his role shook out to be. I'm curious what you thought of it going against him to the extent you did in scrimmages and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying this just as someone who was actually involved with it. It really becomes tough. Like, obviously his role was very limited in the Olympics. And I mean, there were people talking about JT and him not getting as many minutes and everything. And it really just becomes tough because there's matchups, there's the different style of play, and then there's no weakness. Like, Team USA legitimately had no weakness. The bench was amazing. Like, pretty much every player on the bench was an all-star except for D White, I think. Yeah, everyone was an all-star or like all NBA or whatever. So it's really tough to create a lineup or a rotation that with that many players, it just makes it really, really, really tough. So, but as far as what I saw in practice was just what everyone else sees in games, like his amazing passing ability, his ability to create for other people, create for himself, knocking shots down, getting to the rim, drawing fouls. Like, it just, when it came to his rotation minutes, it just became again, I hate to do this because I think a lot of people disagree with it. It became a math problem. Like what Coach Kerr said with Jason Tatum. It's just, there's so many good players, and it's like, and this isn't a knock to anyone. It's just like, who do you want to play? It's like, you've got Steph Curry, LeBron, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Tyrese Haliburton, Drew Holiday. Like, all these guys are just so good. It's like, who are you going to play? And at that point, it just becomes, I guess, a coach's decision on what the best matchups are for that day or that game. So, I mean, I wouldn't say it's a knock to Tyrese at all. I just think it happened to be just the greatest team probably ever assembled on a basketball floor, and he was a part of it. It's just, and he's one of the younger guys. I think that's ultimately what it came down to, was like kind of the youth, I guess, even though he's not young. He's like an all-star, all-NBA guy. So I honestly, I couldn't give you an exact answer, but like he deserved to be there for sure. It's
Oh
just,
yeah.
it gets tough to choose who you're going to play.
Well, I don't even mean to like make this a put you on the spot kind of thing because I agreed with what they did minutes wise. I just thought it was very interesting how it shook out, and they won every game. Why are we nitpicking who isn't playing? Right? Like it's the Olympics. The comp I kept making. I don't know if you've heard this before, but like everybody says, what they call the guy who gets the worst grades in med school? They call him doctor, right? He's a gold medalist. He was on the team. So, but I did. I'll find all those discussions very interesting. Another Pacers connection that no one really talked about. You would know this one, though. Select team coach Jim Boylan, who does a lot of the lead-up games, too, with all the America stuff. Did you get to know him at all? What were your kind of interactions with him in that setting?
So it's interesting. So I really didn't get to know any of the coaching staff for the select team, like little bits here and there, because in Vegas when the select scrimmages were happening, we were with the Olympic team the whole time. So that was something that I got to meet all of them, but I really didn't get to know them very much just because we were with me, Langston, and Nigel with the Olympic team specifically.
Right.
And so any of those situations, like even for the scrimmages themselves against the select team, like we were with the Olympic team. So like if someone went down or was on a minutes restriction because everyone was just getting back from their summer break or whatever, like that was our role. So our time with the select team was very limited. So I didn't get a chance to know him very well. I'd met him, shook his hand, all that kind of stuff. But as far as getting to know him, it just didn't happen.
A lot of, including Tyrese, Myles Turner, and other Pacers select team guys in the past go on to play for Team USA in various events. And I don't know what they're thinking, but I wonder if with no Olympic qualification requirement, how this cycle could be different for Team USA and their program and all things like that. Do you know what your future is in the program? If you have any, what would you like to do after this select team experience where you said it was your dream summer?
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I'd love it if it happened. I mean, you could set a really lofty goal. I'd love to play in the Olympics. I just don't know, just with how talented America is. Like me and Nigel would joke pretty much every single game because a lot of these European teams have like EuroLeague guys on their team starting, right? And Nigel was just first team all EuroLeague this last year. He's like, if I was born in any other country, I'd be a starter on my national team, but I just happened to be born in America. And I was like, same. It's like I'm an NBA guy, but I'm just in America, so it's impossible for me to make this roster. So I guess that would be an ultimate goal. It's a very lofty one. I understand where I'm at in my ability in my career. Like it probably won't happen. I do know that they have other things like qualifying situations, like Pan American Games that sometimes they'll bring G League guys to, different things like that. World Cup. I think that would be really fun if I could go play a role now that I have, the relationships and they know who I am and all that kind of stuff. I'd love to put USA on my chest again. I think it's an honor every single time you're considered for the opportunity. The reality of the situation, though, I don't know how likely that is. Like I said, the World Cup, America's so talented. It's like World Cup, Olympics, all that kind of stuff. It's such a difficult thing to be a part of. So just the fact that I was a part of it in a very small way was an incredible honor. But like I said, for me, anything else to happen other than something like that, I don't know how realistic it is, but I'd love to.
I have a couple of generic your career questions in a second, but I have one more Team USA thing. You played against Serbia. Where did you watch the semifinal Serbia game, and how did you process your own emotions during that? Because that was probably the craziest game I've watched in my own house, like in my life.
Yeah. So to clarify, I was never worried at all.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
Ever. Like I just know how talented we were. We have the best players in the world, arguably, except for maybe three that, like, Luka, Joker, and Giannis. The only way we'd lose any game in that tournament was if we didn't play basketball. Does that make sense? Like if we were just playing like one-on-one ISO ball the whole time, we would have a potential of losing. It would still be slim in my opinion, but against teams like Serbia who hit a bunch of really tough shots and have incredible players like Jokic. They have other really good players, like Micic is really good. Bogdanovic is really good. They have other EuroLeague guys that are solid. But there was no way that we would lose. It would take a lot for us to lose. So I was never worried in that game. I was watching it at home. Right when I got back from London, my wife and I came back to Salt Lake for a little bit, and then we went to Ohio. I'm from Cleveland, so we went to go visit my family for a week. And so I was in Ohio watching the game with my family, and they were all freaking out. My brother who lives out of town, or both my brothers live out of town, they're like, USA is going to lose. They're screwing everything up, like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, guys, relax. Like, we are so much better than Serbia. We have so much better players. The only way we lose this game is if, we don't play legitimate basketball. And I think that's why at that point in time, they played so many vets like LeBron, KD, Joel, Steph. Like, those are the guys that it's not that the other guys don't understand it. It's just those are the guys that are the most skilled, the most willingness in a way to play true basketball and make sure that we win the game. So like that final lineup was great. I thought that was a great decision by Coach Kerr. It's something that I probably would have done myself. And again, it's not a knock to any of the other guys that didn't play it, because they all could have contributed very well. It's just, I think that group was very solid in like winning that game. So I was never worried, but Serbia played really well, almost a perfect game. If they would have played a perfect game, they would have had maybe a chance. But against that kind of a team, like, you have to be absolutely perfect in every situation, which is honestly impossible. So
they might have had it if Bogdan Bogdanovic didn't go at Carmelo Anthony. That was the first half changer. You knew LeBron was coming out of that timeout looking different. You have, going from undrafted to where you are, have had a really unique path with the COVID 10 days in the two ways. What have you made of that, the opportunities that have presented themselves to you, and what do you hope that leads to? Because I think that year there were so many players that it was hard to kind of show in those opportunities that you should stick, but you did. What have you made of your journey to this point and now the opportunity you have with the Jazz?
Well, first and foremost, like, I have to give God all the glory for all of it. It's not something that I could do on my own. So he's at the forefront, but then also I've got a great support system with my wife, my parents, siblings, coaching staffs, trainers that I grew up with, all those people that kind of help point me in a direction and give me the knowledge and discipline to kind of keep my head down, because the G League is a grind. Being undrafted, I was an E10 in Miami, and I played really well in the preseason there. I averaged a double-double in the preseason games when I got in. But it's just kind of how the business works. I signed an Exhibit 10 deal, so I went to the G League. And I played well in the G League, but also there's so many other guys. The opportunity is very slim. And so a lot of it's just kind of keeping your head down and working. And so thankfully I had, like I said, a great support system, a God that's blessed me immensely with health and skill and everything else. But it's one of those things where, because you work so hard, you really have, once the opportunity comes, you have to seize it, and you have to have the confidence and mental ability to go in there and be like, this is mine. Does that make sense? So that's probably the biggest thing that I've had is, I like to be a nice guy, and I try to be a nice guy off the court and everything. And even on the court, I try to be a guy that's like a good teammate and stuff like that. But when it comes down to you or someone else in this business, it's got to be a situation where it's me. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just really taking advantage of opportunities and making sure you're ready for them. Because you never know. Like, even with the Team USA stuff, I wasn't expecting to play, but even though we weren't getting a lot of reps specifically in Vegas, because we were with Team USA and the scrimmages and everything, we had to stay afterwards. I would stay afterwards with Nigel and LG, or sometimes even just by myself, and just shoot and do workouts for like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to make sure that I was in shape for the one shot that I'd probably get per game. So it's one of those things where staying ready so you don't have to get ready, because you never know when your opportunity is going to come. And then when the opportunity comes, is taking advantage of it. And I guess it's just kind of how things have happened. I've worked really hard, and I've been able to take advantage of the times that I've been given opportunity. So it's one of those things where I'm hoping it turns into something a lot bigger in my future, but I'm thankful for what I have here and looking forward to taking advantage of more opportunities for sure.
Last one here. What are your expectations for these two teams this year? I'll just pick two random ones, the Jazz and the Indiana Pacers.
Well, the Pacers, I think, have a really good chance to be really good. Obviously, they had an incredible run last year. I'm pretty sure they're bringing mostly everyone back. Is that right?
Yes.
So having just the continuity of people like that and people that have been there, like everyone's going to get better in the summer, right? And then you just have the increased chemistry and like now you know what it takes. And I think you guys ran into Boston last year and like Boston's really good and they have the exact same team pretty much. So it's one of those things where it's like now you know what it takes. So it kind of can elevate, your mindset going into an off season or going into a season of everything that you need to do. The Jazz, it's interesting. I think we're still in the process of potentially making some moves. I think we've got one roster spot left. I think we might use it. We might not. I really don't know. It's above my pay grade. We obviously just signed Lowry, but I think we pretty much are going to have a relatively similar roster. So the one thing that I can tell you is, Will Hardy is like a diehard for winning. He hates losing. And I think there's a lot of guys in the locker room that hate losing as well. And so we're going to do everything we can to play as hard as we can and as best as we can to win basketball games because that's our job. And so I don't know exactly what's going to happen. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, out of my control. And it's one of those things, especially in this business, all you can do is control what you can control. And that's, attitude, effort, and, that's kind of all you can really do. And so I can tell you one thing, like we're going to be young. We got a lot of skill. We've got athleticism. So I'm sure we'll try to get out and play really hard and try to frustrate some teams. And, the goal is obviously to win a lot of games. So that's what you can expect.
I have never heard a bad thing about Will Hardy as a coach. Like it's just everybody's really impressed with him. I will be the first person to say a bad thing about Will Hardy, and that's that he is too young to be that good of a coach because he's not that much older than me. he's an NBA.
No, I'm sure he would say the same thing. He's had a lot of good mentors, but you can have a lot of good mentors and still wet the bed. This dude is stone cold. I've never seen him razzled in any situation. He's always under control and composed. He's funny. He's a really good relationship builder with guys. So like it's a very for a head coach, the relationship's always different than an assistant, but he does a really good job of like not making everything too serious and like joking with guys and like, expecting the best from them, but also like making sure that they're good, as people, if that makes sense. So he's awesome. I have loved every second being coached by him and being on his team. And I'm looking forward to hopefully having a couple more years of being on the same team as him. So.
Well, Micah, thank you very much for the time. It was very fun to watch you in Team USA throughout the summer. I also covered WNBA, so thank you for filling my basketball gap for 4 weeks with some fun hoops. And I hope you have a great season with Utah.